tell people, come on camera at least for like 2 minutes. Fulfill my like. Welcome, those of you who just joined. Hi, Tracy, how are you?
It says Neil because I'm on my husband's computer, but it's me. Great to
I
see you. I'm excited to be
know.
here.
I saw that name. I was like, how do I know that name? And I'm
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, that's Tracy.
it's
'Cause
me.
I did see you had signed up. So thanks for coming. How are you?
Good, good. Enjoying
Good.
the summer, the great
Yeah.
weather.
I mean, it already feels like August.
I know.
Is it, yeah, I can't believe how warm it's been, like hot already. And then Saturday's supposed to be 50 for the high or something.
I know. I
So,
know.
hi Armando, how are
Hey,
you?
good. How are you?
I'm great. Where are you calling from?
Palm Beach.
Oh, you are,
Yes.
where it's hot all the time.
Not really. We got a really cold winter this year, 70s.
Oh, I feel so bad for you. Oh my gosh. Anyone else? Anne, Donna, Janet, you guys want to come on camera for a few minutes or do you want to stay off for a while? Would love to have you. Anne,
Hey, good to see you.
good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yes. Excited to hear from you though. This is cool.
Oh, yeah. My life is that I was just telling Janet, I haven't seen her for a long time either. It's funny to watch kind of like the twists and turns of my life have been kind of interesting. I was meeting with a friend yesterday. And she said, you need to write a different kind of book. You need to write a book about all these weird experiences you've had in your I'm like, maybe at another time. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
so let's go ahead and get started. Since we're a small group, we had like 18 people sign up, but a couple people emailed me and said they couldn't make the time work, but they wanted the replay. So they signed up for that. So you guys can, I would love it if you would stay on camera because it's just a little bit more engaging, but I also understand if you say, Kara, I don't want to do this, or you have other things going on in your life, totally understand that as well. So um, I do want to thank you for joining. This idea, this Wellness Wednesday, is something that I came up with when I was working with my clients, really, in writing this book, and really realizing that it's funny how we seem to take intentional time to work on our physical health, but we're not that great at taking intentional time to work on our mental health. And we want it just to happen, and then it doesn't. And then we get frustrated and we get stuck in those moments of overwhelm or feeling like super low energy and sometimes feeling like now I'm never going to get out of this. But we haven't really taken the time to really kind of work on it. And so with my clients, I talk about Wellness Wednesday. I've talked about this for quite a while with them, but I call it Wednesday, like WHEN. You may have seen me talk about this because it doesn't have to be a Wednesday, but you got to pick one day of the week where you dedicate like an hour of your time to say, I'm really going to work on my mental well-being, just in the same way that we work on our physical well-being and we take the time to go to the gym or go for a walk, something like that. We're good at dedicating time for that, usually not good on the other end. So I want to thank you for taking this time, and I'm going to have each of you, just to kind of start, take a minute and just sit. We're going to be quiet just for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, not that long. And I want you to take a minute and just check in with yourself. Take 2 or 3 deep breaths. It's important to have a longer exhale than inhale. So a couple deep breaths and just kind of check in. Some people like to put their hand on their heart. I know that sounds cheesy to other people, but just kind of check in. Where are you kind of at today, emotionally, that sort of thing? It might be kind of the first time you've checked in with yourself today. And one thing you can do is kind of see if you can soften something. So whether that's like your forehead, your shoulders, see if, oh my gosh, I don't know if you can hear those cracks, but I just got to really good. See if you can just like soften something a little, even just a little bit, get you there. So that what we just did, even in that small 30 seconds, is a really simple grounding practice. And my work really revolves on two things when I work with clients is how do we help from a psychological standpoint, thinking about things differently, but we're also learning through brain research, through a lot of neuroscience, that there are a lot of things we can do to physiologically change the state that's happening within us. And if you really want to work on your mental well-being, you've got to address both of those. Think about how do I change how I'm thinking, but how do I also impact what's happening physiologically inside of me? So I'm hoping today can be conversational, and hopefully you guys will want to share some things. We're a small group, but we do want to talk about, we're going to start to really explore how do we think about well-being as a skill set, and how do we start to build that? And I know a few of you on here know my story, so I'll tell it pretty briefly. And I was working for a company, I was working for Apple. I think it's okay for me to say that, it's true. And I loved it. I loved working with my business teams. I loved the employees. I loved the work I was doing. It was a cool company, but I just knew I was dying a little bit every single day. And I have the gene that causes breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So my health has always been really forefront to me. My grandma died at 57. My mom died at 60. And so I really have been focused on, how do I not die young? And I realized, in that we have a couple more people joining us. I realized sitting in a coffee shop one day that that I was 44, and I was like, okay, my mom died when she was 60, and 16 years ago doesn't feel like that long ago. And I feel like this job is just killing me. And so I knew that I had to make a change. And I was lucky to be able to do that. I don't have kids. I didn't know what I was going to do for money because I was like, I'm not a trust fund baby, but I'm like, I have enough money to live for a little bit of time. So basically, I'm going to share my screen with you. So basically, here's where I moved. So I quit my job and I moved to a tropical island. And this is like where I live. Like you see that boat out there. I don't know if you guys can see my little cursor, but that boat they call the eyesore, and like people can jump off of it. And my house is like right past there, my apartment. So I'm living in this really beautiful place, seemingly without a care in the world. And then after about 3 months, I'd hired a coach to help me think about like, am I being too reactionary and quitting my job or not? It seems a little bit extreme. And she told me, I thought that it would take about 4 weeks for me to feel better and then to be able to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next for money? And she told me it would take about 3 to 4 months. And she was right. It took about 3.5 months. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, like corporate America washed off of me. And I was like, this is what it feels like to feel good. I haven't felt this as an adult. I don't think in my whole entire life. I've always been just this stressed. I was a stressed kid, always needing straight A's and that kind of stuff. And so after about 3 or 4 months, I got kind of bored. And so I got this job at this place called Frank's Cigar Bar. It was this like teeny little establishment. I was pretending, I was like, oh, this one has a great smoke, like selling cigars to cruise shippers, basically. And so I had somebody in here. And what was interesting, I only worked 2 days a week. I made $11 per shift. For an 8-hour shift, I made $11 plus some tips. And then what I realized one day after maybe a month working there, I was walking home and I was super frustrated with my boss, who's, like 18 or something. And I was just, some of those same feelings were popping back in. And I just really had this aha moment, like, oh, as much as I loved to hang my hat on the fact that my boss was not awesome, which she wasn't, and that the organization had some issues in taking care of their employees, I realized that part of the problem was me. And it was a really harsh realization. And what I really realized is I just didn't have the skill set to deal with really tough circumstances. I would either run, I would fight, that sort of thing. And I realized I have to go back to work. And I don't have enough money to live the rest of my life. And so I have to go back to work in a way that's not going to kill me. So I literally started Googling. I think my first search was like, how do you work a stressful job without letting it kill you? And started like doing all of this research around you. And that's when I really learned well-being isn't a destination. Like I was on a tropical island without a care in the world, doing whatever I wanted. And I was still having those same emotions and feelings come up. And I just realized it is a skill set you can learn that you can carry with you wherever you go. And that's how I've started thinking about how do I work with my clients in that way to build this skill set? Because we're never going to be in a place where there's no stress. I tried it. It doesn't work. Even right here. Even though it's beautiful, huh? I love that little spot. So I would love for you guys to share in the chat, just in a word or two, like what brought you here today? Like what made you say, and it's okay to say like, oh, I just wanted to support Kara. But you can also say like stress. Yeah, a lot of us have that. It's just stress. Anyone else? Yes, balance work stress, balance a successful career, family, life, and stay sane at the same time. Curiosity. Thanks, Armando. Oh, I didn't know that you guys were doing that. That's interesting. And thank you for the love, Anne. Anne and I went to high school a million years ago. Um, Lots of stress. Oh, thank you, Donna. You were in one of my previous sessions. That's awesome. Thank you. So yeah, so one of the things that I learned is in working with clients, we all have similar issues. This stress, this feeling like we have to do it all, this family, trying to balance this family and work and still feel good. But we feel alone in it. When we're in those moments, we feel like, holy crap, we're the only one going through this, and we don't really know how to manage it. And so I asked you to come with a journal if you remember. So I want you to journal just write down, I'll just give you 3 or 4 minutes, but I want you to start to literally write down, don't just like sit there, but I want you to write down the answers to this is why does your well-being matter to you right now? And then think about if you felt 10% more grounded, more clear, more energized, what would change? What would be different for you? And then the last one is who are you at your best? So I'll give you a few minutes to think through those things. Anyone want to share? I know we're a small group. I can't see anybody. I can see like 2 people. So if you want to go ahead and pop in.
This is Anne. I'll share a little bit just because it's on the front of my mind today is just why does well-being matter to you is the one thing we're having a realization, here at I guess you call it midlife, I suppose, that we're seeing elderly parents and how they're doing both physically, mentally, and just their well-being, and trying to learn from that, whether it's good or not so good, like learn the lesson on both sides. And my mom's in a retirement home, so I see a huge variety of people, and those that seem like, you never know because you just see what you see, but some that seem like they have this, positive outlook on life and they're living their best life every day. And then others that don't appear to have that. So it's just kind of an awareness that, living your best life is really important because this is the life, right?
I love that. And it does become so visible looking at parents and looking at, yeah. Like my 91-year-old neighbor stopped by my house, 2 days ago.
Mhm.
It's like, how are you 91? She has like no wrinkles. She's like active all the time. She's like, I'm just a happy person. I just decide to be happy every day. And I was like, wow, like that's something. So
Yep.
Thanks for sharing, yeah. Anyone else thinking about why does your well-being matter?
I would have to say,
Oh, go ahead.
I would have to say, because I want to make sure that I'm around for my kids when they, get older. They're only, 13 and 11 right now. And, my grandparents all died in their early 60s, all four of them. And so my parents are still alive today, but I just don't want to be that parent. I try to live a healthy lifestyle. But one of the things I struggle with sometimes is, my stress with work and bringing it home. And oftentimes my kids are 11 and 13. So they'll remind me, Mom, leave your work at home because Dad always does, or leave your work at work because Dad always does. So, setting that realization too, because I had someone recently tell me you don't want them to, when they get older and go through the same experiences, you want them to think about things differently if they're stressed at work. You don't want them to go through some of the things you were going through and deal with them the same way. And so, that it's just kind of an eye opener for me that, dang, while I teach fitness classes early in the morning, many times a week, 4 times a week, then, that matters, my fitness, but sometimes I don't take care of myself.
Yeah. And I did have one client say, excuse my language, he's like, well, I'm not really allowed to lose my shit at work. And so I hold it all together and then I go home and I lose it there.
Yeah.
And so and he realized like, that's so messed up. Like those people matter way more to me than work does. So yeah. Tracy, were you going to share something?
Yeah, actually very, very similar to Janet's as well. So Kara, I don't think you know this, but last summer lost my job, got a beautiful severance, but looked at my husband and said, I've been in corporate HR for 20 years and I'm fucking tired. I am exhausted. I'm taking care of all the things. And so I just said, I'm giving myself a year. I'm going to be a mom. I'm volunteering at the school once a week. I'm driving my kids to school. I'm going on girls' trips, whatever. But part of me is so guilty for I'm a working person, and heaven forbid I have a 6, 9, 12-month gap on my resume. Like that's going to look terrible to people, but it's been so refreshing to not feel like, kind of going into the second question, I'm not rushed. I'm not reactive. I don't feel like I'm always late to everything, trying to do all the things. And so it's trying to find this balance of when I do go back to work, how can I make sure that I still put myself as number one physically and mentally and be a good mom and a good employee as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It is shocking. I think a lot of people learned that during the pandemic when people weren't going back to work and all the politicians were like, what? And they're fighting, right? They're saying, oh, the unemployment benefits are way too rich. That's why people aren't going back to work. But then when they took those away, people still didn't go back to work.
Right.
And they're like, oh no, people realized what their jobs were doing to them, how stressful they were. And they're like, it's not worth the trade-in. I'll be broke. Like I'll live broke for a while. I'll try to figure something else out to not have that
And there's
stress.
that meme that goes around and it's supposed to be funny, but it's not. And it's like your job, if you died tomorrow, your job will be posted by the end of the week, like before your family has even grieved you. So like think about where you're spending your time and your stress because it's so true.
Yes. Yeah. And so, but still have to work, right? Like most of us still have to work and want to, right? Like I just, if you would have told me when I quit, hey, just live broke, sell your house in Minnesota, you'll have enough money to live for the rest of your life. I probably would have, just being like a beach bum. And I was like, that sounds awesome. But I'm a Capricorn, I'm Gen X. I'm like, I want to work. I have German descent, right? Like we just want to I want to do stuff. So as much as so I've got to find a way to work in a way that doesn't produce that stress so I can do both of those things. So and then there's even just simple things. I mean, quite honestly, if I'm being fully transparent, one of those, when I sat and thought about this question is why does this matter to me? Is I just wanted to feel a little bit less reactive. I just spent a lot of my years being really reactive because I was stressed all the time. And then I hurt people's feelings. I either came across negative at work or I hurt somebody's feelings in my life because I was always reactive because I wasn't able to manage what was going on with me. And that was a big thing for me is I'm like, I was pretty good at recognizing it and then going back and apologizing. But at some point, I don't want to just kind of be angry all the time. And I was walking around really frustrated and angry a lot. So answering these questions and really starting to think about why is this important to us is going to be really important when you start to make those decisions. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, setting that foundation for mental well-being. And it's really, we usually, when we think about our well-being, or really anything that we learn, we usually fall into one of these three kind of categories, right? So if we think about the example of you're lost on the path, there's three different kinds of people who go after this. Some people are just like, well, we got to walk, we got to find our way out. Let's just move, let's just walk somewhere without even really thinking about it. They take action without having direction. There are other people who are like, we need to study, we need to think about where we're going, and they can get lost in the learning and not take action. And then there are just kind of people who are avoiding things. So I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll work on my mental health when this project is over. I'll wait until summertime when the kids are out of school and I don't have to help with homework. So we just avoid it until we get to some time down the road that never happens. They on the island on Roatan, they call it everything island time, and it's a real thing. And you ask any local person like when they're going to help you, and they'll say manana, manana. And then the next day it's like manana, manana. So they just keep pushing the can down the road. And that's what that avoidance kind of looks like. And so if you think about when it comes to your mental well-being, if you think about that action without direction, learning without action. So the learning without action looks like you buy the book, you buy the supplements, you buy the program, and then you just never do anything with it. I fall into that camp. I'm just like, teach me more. And then when I don't do the workout program, I'm like, oh, I must need to buy a new different workout program for some reason. But so I personally get stuck in that learning without action. I have a really good friend who's the action without direction. So he just tries anything without kind of making any sort of plan to be there. So I want you to think for a couple minutes, if we think about these three categories, which of these shows up most for you and in what situation? So just think about where you've been before. And then do you just swing between them in different areas of your life? So you might actually go back and forth between one or the other. And then what about with your own well-being? Like where do you usually sit there? Can you guys see the difference between these? Can you see yourselves in one of these categories? Yeah, a couple of you are like, mm-hmm. We both, this can be pretty familiar when it shows up, when we call it out, we're like, oh yeah, I can totally see myself there. And I swing between all of them. I'll avoid sometimes and just put things off for 2 or 3 weeks, which isn't ideal anyway. We know that consistency in almost everything, consistency beats intensity every day of the week. So, okay. So what we want to go to next is this isn't really about like shame, right? Oh, you're supposed to be in this one category, but it's really having that awareness to where you are so you can see what actions, what you're doing, and then you can choose what you want to do next. And there's a path to learning that actually has been proven to work in education and in neuroscience. I simplified it. So this learning path that I talk about where you inquire, learn, and do, and it's based on some work by David Kolb. He's like a scientist, a researcher in educational programs, and he has this 4-step path. I've made it down to 3 because it's just easier for my clients to use. And what they found, there's a guy named James Zoll, who I took this neuroscience class in 2020 because I was bored, right? And I'm fascinated with how the brain works. Like you tell me to meditate because it's good for you because they've been doing it for thousands of years and I'm skeptical. I'm like, whatever. But if you tell me, oh, your cortical thickness is that of a 27-year-old, if you meditate consistently, I'm like, oh, I can get behind that type of research. So I found this model, and this guy named James Zoll, who's a neuroscientist, he found that actually the way that we learn in the brain through the brain structures is actually cyclical as well. And it follows the same process. So whenever you're wanting to learn something, there's kind of this path that shows you how to learn. So first you inquire, you ask some questions, Then you learn something, right? Like reflect on patterns, values, strategies. What are some things that can help me? And then you do. So you act. So you take some action, you work on some skills. And then once you do that, you go back into that circle and you inquire again. How did that work for me? What was that like? Did it work well? Did it not? Did it not help me? And so if you think about this, like we'll do like a super simple example. So if you can all think about just one moment, if you noticed one moment recently where you were having a tough moment sometime in the past few days. Just kind of think about that for a minute. If you can get that in your head. I have one, I had a crazy one like 2 days ago. I was like, what is happening inside of me? So then you can ask yourself these questions, this quick inquire, learn, and do. So what's draining me? Where am I feeling this? Just that noticing, that awareness, and asking that question, where is this coming from? That second step, learn, is that where is this coming from? What's below the surface? And then the third one is that do. So what has worked for me in the past? What do I need to do in this moment? And so a couple days ago, I'll give you this example. I woke up, it was probably at 3 days ago, maybe. And I do that little grounding exercise that we did at the beginning. I do that every single morning. Where are you at? How are you feeling? How are you feeling today? Like just to check in with myself so that I know. And I checked in and I was like full of anxiety waking up. And I couldn't normally, long before I started doing this process, I would have gone through my day anxious, but I took just a minute to think, okay, what's draining me? I'm stressed about this thing for a client. I'm getting ready. I want it to be really good. And I feel like I'm behind on it. All right. Okay. So what has worked for me before? And one of the things I realized, I'm like, oh, I was in that avoidance stage. I hadn't been to the gym for 3 days. And one thing I know about myself is the gym is more important for my mental health than my physical health. And so then I just prioritized, okay, I've got to get to the gym, release some of this energy and this stress. And it literally worked like a charm. Like I was able to complete my thing, get through my day, like get rid of that anxiety that was going on. But had I not first taken this step to acknowledge and to think about that awareness, like where is that? It's hard for you to like move forward from that. Does that make sense? That inquire, learn, and do. So I'll just show you really quick. This is what I teach with my clients in this. The model that I created for this book. We don't have to go through it today. This is a little bit more in depth, but it really gets to that core self. So I really have this belief inside of us that inside of us is a person who's resilient. They can have this optimized life. They can be integrated, balanced in their life. And so how do we go through these phases to like figure that out and to get to that person? And the way that you do that, let's talk a little bit about agency. So here's another picture from the island. And this is a picture. Do you guys know what agency means when we talk about agency? Personal agency. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But I wanted to share this with you because this is the best example to me. So my sister is on the left there and her friend Addie, and they came to visit me when I first moved to Roatan. And Anne probably recognizes those faces. And my sister is scared of everything. And we were going out for the day to this place called Cayos Cachinos, which is this group of islands. It's beautiful. The first time I went there, they were shooting the Italian version of Survivor out there. Like it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And usually you see dolphins on the way and whatever. So Tim was our captain and he's got this big boat called Ruthless. And so we were going out to the islands and it was a gorgeous day, but we encountered this storm cell that was really, really strong. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty bad. And my sister, because she's scared of everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, Liza's gonna be losing her mind. But Tim, so we went upstairs, we were sitting with Tim as we're going through this crazy storm, and Tim just has this smile on his face the whole time. He's managing through the waves. He's just like taking care of it, and he's unflappable. Like it's unbelievable to watch him. Because I have been on those same waters in a storm before with a captain who did not know what he was doing. And it was a very different picture. And so I was just very, very happy that my sister wasn't with me on that trip because it would have been bad. And it ended up to be, it looks all gray and bad, but it literally passed in less than 10 minutes and it was a beautiful day. Liza said it ended up being her favorite day she was there for a week. So, but it ended up a beautiful day really because of Tim. And so if we think about agency, it's really, if you think about the definition in the dictionary, it's about like an action or intervention, especially such as to produce a particular effect. But if we think about your personal agency, it's really this belief, this ability to act and make choices that shape our own lives and experiences, this feeling of control, having influence over a situation. And so when it comes to our personal well-being, it's really about preparing for the storms, not pretending they won't come. So when I first started doing this work, I would get really frustrated with myself when I got into a very anxious or very stressed or very overwhelmed place, because I thought, I'm better now, right? I feel better. I shouldn't have these feelings anymore. And what I really came to realize is, oh no, like these storms are going to happen because it's just part of being human, but how do we prepare for them? And there were two things really that Tim had that prepared him. He had the skills. He was a really great captain, had been on those waters before. And then he had a really great vessel. Like his boat was awesome, right? And he took care of it. So how do we do both of those things for our own agency? Develop that skill set, but then also how are we taking care of our body, our mind, our nervous system in a way that we can have the responses that we want to have? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this building agency is super important. And there are a couple ways to do that that are pretty they're simple. They're not always easy. So I would love for you to use your journal and just answer these few questions for yourself. And this, like, how do we start building agency? So what is one thing about my health that I would really like to be even just a little bit better? Whether you're physical or mental health. And then when have I successfully done something I didn't think I could do? And where have I let myself feel like a victim of circumstance? If anybody wants to share, I know this is a little bit personal, but I've told enough stories. So if anybody else wants to share a story, that'd be awesome. You don't have to.
Well, I guess mine's not super exciting, but the first thing that comes to mind about something you could be just a bit better is sometimes I'm kind of the all or none, like I'm not feeling that great today, so I'm not going to like exercise at all versus like I'm not feeling that great today. Maybe I could do yoga instead of, the bike or whatever.
Yes.
So that all or none mentality, I think I could tweak that a bit.
I love that. I was talking about that with a friend at the gym yesterday. I'm an all or none. Have you heard of, I can't remember who used this term, so I'm totally stealing it. I wish I could give him credit. Have you heard of the term exercise snacks? You heard this term? This guy talks about, and I can't remember who he is, but he's famous in the world of like longevity, health, longevity, wellness, physical wellness. And he talks about we actually don't need we don't need these 45-minute sessions, but like do three on a day you don't want to work out, do 3 exercise snacks during the day. So those are things like get on the ground and just do as many push-ups as you can. Do 1 minute, 60 seconds of jumping jacks. Do like 1 minute of running up and down the stairs, right? So that is one thing I try to build in, and because I am also an all or nothing person. So, and that helps me. Even like 1 minute of deep breathing, I'm like, okay, I don't have time. I have a busy day, but I can stop and breathe for 1 minute.
Yeah.
So, love that.
That is probably true. Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah. I remember reading a thing where Oprah said she used to do it when she went to the bathroom, do her deep breathing like when she was in the bathroom. So
That's
And
fine.
that victim of circumstances, oftentimes even things like, for me, part of it was my genetics, right? So I went through, after I found out I had this genetic condition, it was super early on, like doctors didn't even know what it was at the time that I found out about it, because my mom was part of the study that found it. And so I just felt like for a while, like there's nothing I can do. I have this gene. I had doctors tell me it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when for you, Kara, like when you're going to get cancer. They literally said that to me. So that was kind of this circumstance. Or I just sometimes will just say, well, I am who I am. I'm hot-headed sometimes. Like that's just it. That's how I was made. And my dad's the same. My grandpa was the same. I'm the same. I used to say that. We would call it the lens temper. So, but we can oftentimes attribute those things to circumstances and kind of give up instead of taking agency and saying, hey, look, this doesn't have to be exactly that way. So once you have that awareness, then one of the things that I love to work with my clients on is asking them to pick one of these 3 questions. And how do you support yourself? And this really builds some agency. It's a great way to build that feeling of, I've got a little bit of control over what's happening to me. And so I ask people to pick one of these. And so I would love for you to pick one of them that resonates with you right now. What would a healthy person do? So when you're in that moment of like stress or struggling, what would a healthy person do? How can I be kind to myself right now? If you're really struggling with something, you're stressed out, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling like a bad mom. And then another question is, what do I need in this moment? And that was the question I asked myself a few days ago. I'm like, what do I need in this moment to feel better? Kara, you've got to get to the gym. I know you're busy, but you've got to get to the gym. So pick one of those questions, and this is a great way to really think through, like, how do I have compassion for myself and how do I build agency? Because quite honestly, being the very best version of yourself is the best gift you can give to anybody who's working with you, your family, the whole world. Like, it seems selfish and people like to mock self-care and mental wellness and that sort of thing, but we all know that people who are mentally strong are better in the workplace. They're better at home. They're better when they go get coffee. They're not like screaming at people on the roads, like, get out of traffic, the road rage. So it's this, creating this best version of you is actually the best thing you can do for everyone around you. And picking one of these questions and asking yourself that question throughout the day is going to be really important in helping you build that. All right. So the reason agency is so important and being able to build that agency and have agency is because it leads to choice. When you don't have agency, you don't feel like you have a choice in what's happening to you, what's happening around you, your ability to change your circumstances, even if it's just a little bit better. But you've got to have some agency in order to be in choice. And then once you can be in choice, then you can really get to those intentional yeses and nos. And so when you decide, I want to choose my well-being and I feel like I have agency over it, even if doctors tell me I don't, even if my boss is crazy and making me bananas, even if my work is overwhelming right now, I've got some agency over me. Then you can start saying, what do I say yes to and what do I say no to? And so this is an exercise that I am going to ask you to think about after after we leave, because I want you to spend a little bit of time on this one. And it's an important one. But if you ask yourself, like, in choosing health, if you really do want to choose your health, what things would you be saying yes to? And this is whatever that happens to be for you, right? Like, if that's, I would saying yes to more energy, having more focus, being more in control. Like, what would this really be like if I said yes to my well-being? If I said yes to health, what would that look like? Having a sense of accomplishment, feeling rested. Man, I used to wear a badge of honor, like, oh, I only got 5 hours of sleep last night. Armando knows the days when our Best Buy days when we were working 60, 70-hour work weeks. And it was a badge of honor to be at the office and when the lights shut out at 8 o'clock, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm still at the office working. Like, I can't believe some of the things I did for Best Buy back then. Sorry, Armando. But
That's okay.
we were in the thick of it.
Memories.
We were in the thick of it together during those
Yeah.
best buddy days. Yeah. And so what would you choose? What things would you be saying yes to if you chose your health? And then in order to do that, there are things you would have to say no to. So saying no would be things like, I know this is the hardest one for me these days, social media, like doom scrolling. All of a sudden I look up and I've been scrolling through just junk for an hour and a half. And I'm like, what are you doing with your life, Kara? Get off of this. And it's made to be addictive, right? So I'm not too hard on myself because I know they literally set up those programs to be addictive. But saying no to social media scrolling, staying up just for like one more episode. Is anyone watching the show Hacks? Do you guys know this show on Max? Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with it. It's so good. The way that I learned to say no to one more episode, this is a little trick I learned for myself. I start like I'll watch a full episode, and then the way that I start a series, I watch the full episode 1, and then I watch like the first 5 to 10 minutes of episode 2, and then I start there and go to the next 10 minutes of episode 3, because they get you with that binge watching with the cliffhangers. And so I just watch until I can get my cliffhanger sorted, and so I don't have to wonder what's next, and then I shut it off 10 minutes in. So that's my little hack for like how to not turn into binge watching. And then what else you might say no to is like perfectionism, right? Raise your hand if you're a perfectionist. Anyone else out here? I am such a perfectionist. Like I sometimes have to intentionally choose no and say, I'm going to choose to send this to this client, to this person, and I know it's not perfect, but I need to send it. So the point here around saying yes to things, like what do I really want to say yes to for my health? And what do I say no to is really deciding I'm saying no to scrolling on Instagram tonight because I'm choosing my health. I'm saying no to one more episode of Hacks because I'm choosing my health. And so really being specific, what am I saying no to? And how am I being intentional around that because I'm saying yes to my health? And that little mind shift can help you really think about how do I start to make these small shifts? And so it's not really about these big declarations, right? Like I tried to do it by just quitting my job and saying like, screw you to the man, and like moving to this tropical island. And it just didn't work that way. I got way healthier by figuring out what are these small, quiet decisions that I make every single day to make myself feel good and to feel better. And so, we'll go, I want to see what, oh yeah, 113. Okay, perfect. So what I want you to do, that's one thing I want you to do after this. And then there's a couple other things I want you to do as you think about this week. So when I work with my clients, I do a couple of things. I make them promise to do. I actually won't take on an individual coaching client unless they agree to these two things. They have to agree to a small daily practice that takes them less than 30 minutes. And they have to agree to journal at least once a week. And it has to be like 20 minutes. And I don't care what they write. I don't make them turn it in. But I have found the people who make a difference in their health and the people who don't, those are the two big things that I have found make the difference. If people are willing to sit down and journal and think through things and let themselves pause, it makes a huge difference. So for this week, what I want your practice to be as you think about is just once a day. This takes like 30 seconds, right? We did it at the beginning of the call, is just stop and ask yourself, where am I? Sometimes it helps to put your hand on your heart and one hand on your gut and really think about emotionally, physically, mentally, where am I right now? And then just take one small action, breathe, move, get something done if that's what you need. But asking yourself then that question, what do I need right now in this moment? But you've got to take a minute to check in with yourself every day and just recognize, where am I right now? And what do I need really in this moment? It takes like 30 seconds, right? Maybe 60 seconds. But I want you to commit to doing that once a week or once a day this week. And then this journal question, what does feeling better matter to me right now? And what would be different if I did that? How would my life look different? What would be different for me? And I want you to describe that in detail. So really spend like at least 20 minutes writing, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just let yourself, I do tell people to write with a pen because it slows your brain down a little bit, and our brains are constantly. And so it forces you to slow down, and it forces you to stimulate that vagus nerve and to get you in out of that fight or flight and into that rest and relax mode, which is what we're trying to do with these actions. So we're really trying to remember we do try to attack both ways. How am I thinking differently? What are some exercises I can do for that? And how am I impacting my physiological body, my physiological self differently? We want to slow ourselves down a little bit because we can come from a place of choice and not be reacting at the time. And then the last one, because I always only make people do 2 things, but I was like, no, I'm going to ask these guys to do 3 because I think this one is important, is to really think about what are you going to say no to this week? And saying no might be, okay, I'm saying no to Instagram just 2 days this week, or I'm saying no to anything past 15 minutes, or I'm saying no to whatever it happens to be. But in terms of choosing your health, what are you going to say no to this week? And then intentionally, as you notice it, sometimes it helps to even say it out loud, right? I'm saying no to this because I'm choosing my health. And so how do you create that frame for yourself? You guys have any questions about your assignments? Did you know you were going to get assignments today? So your school lesson for the day? My mom was a teacher, so.
I knew you would, Kara.
Yes, Armando, I gave you a lot of assignments back in the day.
Yep.
I was Armando's HR partner for several years, so. Any questions about this? It seems doable, right? It's not a lot. Couple minutes once a day and then 20 minutes, so. All right. So then before we take off, oh, good. And we'll have a little time if you guys have questions. Just kind of remember this, and I'll send out the replay, and I can send out the slides if that would be helpful. But knowing your why is really important. And so asking that and answering that question around why is my health important to me? And sometimes it's easy. For me, I would say maybe it was a little bit easier because I had this looming thing, right? Where I had this genetic thing where doctors are telling me, you're probably like, you're going to die young. Like, this is just part of what it is for you. And so it was easy for me to know, okay, I've got to get my cortisol under control because I don't want to die at 60 like my mom did. And people often think that the absence of disease equals health, and that is just not the case. Like, we don't know what that stress is doing to us underneath all of this until one day, all of a sudden, we're in the hospital or something has happened and we think, man, yesterday I was healthy, I felt great. And today I'm in the ER. Well, you weren't healthy yesterday. You just didn't know it. And so how do we get ahead of this? And how do we start thinking about how do we manage our cortisol, manage that inflammation so that we can be here as long as we want to and like live this life? So you've got to know your why behind why is this really important to you? And then identify where you are on that path. Are you somebody who wants to learn, buy the programs, buy the supplements and never take them? That's me. Are you somebody who just does a whole bunch of stuff without even really a plan or like learning anything new? Or are you completely avoiding it thinking, I'll get healthy later. Like I got stuff to do now, whatever. Just remember you have agency, and therefore agency, even you can build it asking yourself that question and having that awareness, then you can move into choice. And then how are you intentional about what you say no to and what you say yes to in terms of your health, because you're saying yes to your health. And then, yeah, just have this commit to your well-being. Does that make sense? Your assignments make sense? So yeah, so we have a few minutes. Oh, I did get a couple of, okay, those are all fine. We do have a few minutes if anyone has any questions or you want to ask about any best practices or things that have worked before or haven't worked.
You know, Kara, I think life gets in the way, as we all probably are very aware of that. How do you recommend keeping this in the forefront so that it becomes a practice that you exhibit on a daily basis, and then you start to teach it, right? I think you have to live it, you have to practice it, and then you could teach it. How do you keep this in the forefront and not let life get in its way?
Yeah, that is a great question. One of the things I work with people on is finding exactly that, Armando. And so that depends on each person. And so what the activities that we just talked about is first really getting grounded in why is this important to me? Because I found that the reason people let life get in the way is because they haven't stepped back and taken that step to say, why is this important to me? What is important about it? What am I going to say no to if I'm saying yes to my health? And really taking the time. We don't want to do that. I would guess, like me, Armando, you are an activator. If I don't know if any of you have taken the Clifton Strengths Finder, I'm activator number one. I am a ready, fire, aim kind of person. And so really being intentional, knowing that about yourself and stepping back. So doing that foundational work of why it's important. And then you've got to find some sort of reminder system for yourself. Honestly, I had one group that I did this with, and I bought these they were cute, but they were just these cheap little rings on Amazon. And I have one of them right now. And I move it to a different finger, or I move each day, or I put a different one on. Something that it can remind me, like, okay, you need to pay attention to what's happening right now, Kara. This is my reminder of like, okay, I need to breathe. I've decided this month I'm really working on taking intentional breath. And whenever I see this it's just this blue little cheap ring. But that's what I use to remind myself, okay, I need to take a breath when I'm stressed out. And then quite honestly, it just becomes the more and more that we do it, Armando, the more it becomes second nature. But first, you've got to put some processes in place to help you remember to do that.
Sure.
Yeah. And you're right. I'm glad you brought up the point around we all are trying to help everyone else, right? As leaders, as moms, as trying to help anybody in the world. And really, if we don't have if we don't have that for ourselves yet, we can't really be effective in helping somebody else. I think about my friend Kathy when I was flying home from Roatan a couple weeks ago. I was flying on a buddy pass, and I have a friend who's a pilot, and his mom was with me, Kathy, and we took off late. We landed late. It was going to be whether or not we got through customs and got through security. My flight was 30 minutes before hers. And so she was like waiting at the line for me. She's waiting and waiting for me. I had checked bags. She hadn't, to get through security because she wanted to like help me get up front and get through security. So we get through security. I run. I have like 8 minutes to get to my gate. So I like sprint to my sprint in like my turns, my sprinting, right? To get to my gate. And I get there with like 2 minutes to spare. And Kathy missed her flight because it was actually 20 minutes earlier, but she hadn't even checked on her own to take care of herself because she was so busy making sure that I was taken care of. And so, yeah, I got on my flight and she had to spend the night in Miami. We were in Miami. So, I was like, what a great metaphor for like, you have to take care of yourself first, before you worry about taking care of other people.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions, thoughts?
I like your stories. I like your ring. That's a good one too. I kind of find I have to trick myself, like if I want to remember something, like even like I've had trouble with allergies recently, so I'm putting that little bottle like next to my, at the breakfast table, like so I can remember. Just kind of tricking yourself seems to work for me.
Exactly. And you got to move it around a little bit because our brains
Yeah.
adjust really quickly, right?
I put it in my napkin, and so when I pull it, I'm like, oh yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Yep, we got to find those little hacks. And that's one thing that I work with people on it because there's no right answer is like, how do you find what works for you?
Yeah.
So I did have one individual client, and he lives here in Minneapolis. And so we would meet every now and then in person for coffee. And I brought him this ring. To me, it looked like a manly ring. And he was like, no way, 1 million years am I ever going to put that on, Kara. I was like, okay, cool. But then let's think of some other ways that you can kind of try to remember the stuff you're committing to. So. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining. I will send out the replay. And then we have another one next Wednesday. So if you want to join for next Wednesday, we'll be doing the same time. And then in the meantime, if you guys have any questions or whatever, or if you're just like want to talk through anything or you have any ideas, I'm open. This Wellness Wednesday thing is a new thing for me too. So if you have good ideas or whatever, like happy to listen to any of those. So awesome.
Kara,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Nice job.
Yeah, thank you.
This is great, Kara.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to
Bye.
meet everyone. Good day.
We'll see you guys.